Hi, my name's Caitlin, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make an apple pie from scratch. We're going to start off by making our pie dough first. So empty the entire contents of your pie dough mix into a large bowl and add your cold butter. Using your fingers, begin to rub the butter into the flour until your mixture resembles coarse crumbs and you have small pea-sized chunks of butter mixed throughout. This process is called cutting in, and it's extremely important to pie dough preparation. When our pie goes into the oven, these chunks of butter are going to melt down and create steam. And the steam is going to give us those nice flaky layers that we have come to know and love in an apple pie. If you don't feel like using your fingers, it's too messy for you, you can use 2 knives, a fork, or a pastry blender. All of these things might help speed up the process and keep your hands a little bit cleaner as well. Okay, so this is our finished pie dough. It's rough, it's coarse crumbs, but we have larger chunks of butter throughout. It's exactly what we want. So now we have to add our ice water. We use ice water to hopefully not melt our chunks of cold butter as we mix it up. Now we're looking to get a moist dough, not a wet dough. So we're going to add our water gradually. As we do so, we're going to fluff it gently until a dough forms. There's no more dry crumbs in the bottom, and our dough holds together when we squeeze it. So we'll start adding our water. I toss it lightly with my hands and just gradually add a little bit more. You might not even need to use all the water depending on the weather outside or what elevation you're at. It really depends on a lot of different factors how much water you use. That's why it's really good to use your hands as opposed to a spoon or a spatula in this situation, because you get a really good idea for the moisture content in your pie dough without overdoing it. So I start to feel my dough coming together, so I'm going to stop here with the water and just really focus on pulling it all together so that I don't overdo it. Okay, so my pie dough is now holding together in my hands. Get the extra dough off your fingers. It'll make the whole process a lot simpler. And do your best to gather your dough into one solid mass. So here's our finished pie dough. There's no more crumbs in the bottom of the bowl, and our pie dough holds together nicely when I squeeze it together. So now what we're going to do is divide our dough into 2 equal pieces, place them on sheets of plastic wrap, wrap them up, and stick them in the fridge to firm up. The chilling process will probably take about 30 minutes to an hour to complete. Get these all wrapped up and into the fridge. While your pie dough is setting up in the fridge, you can prepare your apples. I like to cut mine down into larger slices and leave the skins on. I just think it adds a really nice texture to the finished pie. But if you prefer to peel them or cut them into chunks, it's totally a matter of personal preferences. But once you get those all cut up, keep them in a bowl and put them aside until we're ready to add them to our pie. Grab your pie dough out of the fridge. This has been chilling nicely for about an hour. It's firm, but slightly pliable, which is what we want. Have a little bit of flour nearby just to lightly dust your surface so your pie dough doesn't stick to the table. Unwrap your pie dough. A little bit more flour on top to make sure the top doesn't stick, and let's get rolling. Start in the middle with both hands on either side. Do it gently, a little bit of rolling at a time. You're going to be tempted to push really hard and just work the dough to death, but that's not what you want to do. Your dough is cold right now, so if you press too hard, it's more likely that your dough is going to crack and not hold together. Just take it a little bit at a time, be patient, turning as you go, and I promise it'll roll out exactly the way that you need. We want to roll out our dough so that by the time it's wide and flat, it's a little bit wider than our pie plate turned upside down with a little bit of overhang so that we can make a crust. If your pie dough starts to stick, just dust a little bit more flour underneath. Pay close attention to the shape of your pie dough as you roll it also. We want to try and make this as close to a perfect circle as possible. It'll be a lot easier to work with. I'm starting to stick a little bit on top, so I'm just going to do a little dusting of flour on top as well. Rub that in. Try not to overdo it with the dusting flour. You run the risk of drying out your pie crust. You say, I've taken my time and gradually rolled out the dough so that we don't have any cracking or pieces breaking off. Now we said we wanted this to be about the size of a pie plate turned upside down plus a little bit more. So we'll check to see if we're at the right size. That's looking pretty good. So now we can put our pie crust into our pie plate. Working gently, you have two options. You can lift your dough with two hands and place it in the pie. Or if you're a little bit more nervous, you can use your rolling pin. Put it in the center of your pie dough and drape it over top. Pull your pie plate over and roll it across. Gently lift and tuck your pie dough into the plate so that it forms to the shape of your pie plate. Don't forget to go around the inside edges as well, pressing them into the sides to make sure that our pie crust is fully formed to the shape of your pie plate. Okay, so our bottom crust is in. Now we're going to make up the filling for our pie. Our pie filling mix contains sugar. When you add sugar to fruit, the fruit naturally begins to release its juices, which is great. That's what we want, but we want it to do it in the pie in the oven. If we add it too soon, say while the pie dough is still refrigerating, our apples will macerate and our pie will be soupy and our apples will have no texture. So it's best to do it as close to the filling time as possible. So take your pie filling mix, add it to your apples, and toss it around until it's not dry anymore, as best as you can. This might take a minute or so, depending on how juicy your apples are naturally to begin with. It smells really good, by the way. This is when you start to get really excited for your apple pie, smelling the cinnamon and all of the spices. Okay, so my apples are pretty well coated there. I'm gonna dump them into my pie. Any extra sugar or filling mix is fine. Just try to distribute your dry mix over top of the apples as evenly as possible, and the apples will absorb them. Arrange your apple slices on top so that everything is even. And now we'll roll out our second pie crust, our top crust. So don't forget we need to have some flour down to dust so that our pie dough doesn't stick. This piece of pie dough does not have to be rolled out quite as large as the bottom since it's going right over top. We don't have to take into account the sides of the pie plate or anything like that. All right, pie dough down, a little bit more flour for dusting, and we get rolling. Remember to take your time. We don't want to crack our pie dough or break it into two separate pieces, so take your time. Turn as you go, and that will prevent your pie from sticking to the table. And if you need to add a little bit more flour to dust, go right ahead. Just don't overdo it. Remember that we want to have as close to a perfect circle as possible. Even if I'm having trouble making that happen, that's still our goal. Once it looks like you can cover the top of your pie, just transfer it over. Same rules apply. You can use your hands or you can use the rolling pin. This time around, I'm just going to lift up my pie dough in my hands. If your dough is chilled enough, lifting it up with your hands shouldn't be too big of an issue. Place your dough over top of your apples. Make sure we're covered on all edges all the way around, which we are. Now we're gonna go through and crimp the sides of the pie. You can do this by using your 2 fingertips here, your pointer finger and your thumb on each hand. Press the 2 together, squeezing as you go to create a really tight crimp all the way around. I'm interlocking my fingers as I go. That's really pushing it together and giving us that crimped point. Now, if the crimping is too difficult for you, a fork would work. There's a variety of different ways that you can make decorative crusts. You don't just have to use your fingers. Check your equipment drawer in your house. See what other kind of cooking tools you have that have interesting designs on them. Maybe a zester with its little grooves would make a really pretty decorative crust all the way around. If you have any extra pie dough, you can roll it out and use a small cookie cutter and cut out small shapes and sort of layer them around, so that way you don't have to do any sort of manual crust work here. You can just essentially glue them on to look pretty. Okay, so now our pie is crimped all the way around, and I'm just gonna go around with my thumb and take off the extra pie dough here. If you have a knife handy, that could make the process go a little bit smoother and give you a cleaner edge. In fact, I have a knife handy, so we can see exactly how that works. Be careful with the knife, but put the blade right up against the pie plate and just kind of saw around. We're just looking to clean up the edges. Okay. Go around with the palms of your hand one last time to make everything tight and uniform looking. Put your extra pie dough off to the side. This will make a great snack for later. And using that handy knife of yours, make a few slits in the top of your pie to vent, so that as those apples cook, the steam will be released through the top. You can have a lot of fun with this part. You can make fun designs, you can add some of that scrap pie dough to the top, but the most important thing is that you want your pie vented. Okay, so this is gonna go into a 350-degree oven for approximately 40 to 50 minutes. I recommend putting your pie on a sheet pan or a cookie sheet, just in case it bubbles over in the oven. Remember, all those juices from the apple are gonna be released from all that sugar in our pie filling mix. So, apple pie going into the oven for about 45 minutes. We'll see when it's done. All right, so our pie is out of the oven. It's got a nice golden brown color to it. You can see where our layers were created by the melting butter throughout that you did such a good job of cutting in. Great job. I don't know about you, but to me, this screams put vanilla ice cream on me. Enjoy.